Hi everyone. Uh, this is Blake Lamond. I am here from Billigence here today to talk to you, to give you a walkthrough of the Alteryx Intelligence Suite in Alteryx Designer as well. And I will be covering some of the topics around natural language processing and also assisted modeling using the AutoML tool, and also covering target leakage as well. So yes, so broadly, this is a bit of a showcase of the Alteryx Intelligence Suite and some of the capabilities. And to give you a bit of a highlight, a bit of an insight into how to use them to meet your data challenges as well. So I'm from Billigence as well. I'm a senior consultant here at Billigence, and Billigence is an international data analytics consultancy as well. And we specialize in helping organizations meet their challenges in data warehousing, data science, data analytics, data visualization, and data governance, and many other aspects as well of business intelligence. So we have offices in Europe, Singapore, and Australia, and also the US as well. But let's talk about sentiment analysis as well first, a pretty interesting topic as well as part of natural language processing. If you are not familiar, before I get to that as well, just a little bit about the Intelligence Suite as well. So this is an additional add-on that's available for Alteryx Designer, and it has a collection of tools as well for the text mining, language processing, and also to help you and your users in your organization streamline the automated machine learning capabilities as well. So we won't be covering all of the tools today, but if you're interested, please contact us and we'll be happy to arrange a more targeted demo as well for you or any other members of your organization as well. So sentiment analysis. If you're not aware of sentiment analysis, it is a technique in natural language processing where we effectively try to quantify the emotions or sentiment within text as well. And we pursue that for different means or different reasons as well. Sentiment is a really objective topic as well. A single sentence can be interpreted by humans, in many different ways as well. So one way of using this technique is we can reduce that bias as well. We're really trying to quantify the sentiment, the emotional impact within the text as well, as a way of analyzing text as well, and many other different applications as well. Now, there are many different algorithms as well that can be used in here, and also APIs and I guess paid services as well. But effectively, what we're looking at when we perform sentiment analysis is analyzing between, on the scale of -1 to with 0 being negative, 1 being very positive as well. So we're trying to capture the magnitude. There are many other natural language processing techniques. They're really very interesting and exciting, but here for today, we're just looking at the actual sentiment between it, or inside the sentence as well. The Veda algorithm as well, it's a free library as well, so you can use it in your Python scripts as well. And that's what we're using here underneath inside the Alteryx tool as well. And so that's also takes into account punctuation and case to amplify sentiment as well. So lots of exclamation marks or all capitals will increase effectively the magnitude of the sentence of the text that we're analyzing. So with that being said, it's always a bit better to not pre-process your text when using this tool. And that might mean removing unnecessary punctuation as well. So we're really trying to take this as basically as raw as possible, but within limits as well. So we might have to correct spelling mistakes or anything, depending upon your inputs as well. So when we're performing the sentiment analysis, are we looking at it on a sentence level, or are we looking at the sentiment across the whole text? So within perhaps say a paragraph or a document as well. And we have those capabilities using this tool as well. So yeah. So we've got some possible use case, but let me right now just hop over to Alteryx and take you through a bit of an example as well. And I'll also show the word cloud tool as well. So in here, we have some online reviews that we scraped around the beginning of the pandemic, and they were focused on experiences with online shopping as well. So pretty raw sample of text out there as well. And so we were quite interested in capturing the sentiment as well. So we in here, if I hop over to the sentiment analysis tool in here, and I'll just take you through some of the options as well, or the configurations. Okay, so first of all, sorry, I'll just share the tool, my mistake. Okay, so I'm looking in here, going to the text mining palette as well, okay, and we'll just be focusing here on the sentiment analysis tool. So I've brought in my kind of text, my data, my input. In here it's a CSV, and bear in mind this could be connected to, we could be calling this via an API. We could be connected to a database. We can take advantage of all of the different types, the variety of data sources that Alteryx connects to. And we can also apply this at scale as well, and also automate it using the Alteryx server. So when we start to interact with the sentiment analysis tool, at the moment, we can only select English as well, and also only this Vader algorithm at the moment. So, but I expect there to be some more developments or choices in here as well, so at later dates. So in here, the next step is that we select which field from our input are we going to be analysing. So bearing in mind, we could apply this analysis on multiple fields as well. And we could also split our text. So we might kind of take a body of a single paragraph and break it up in sentences, and then be able to track the sentiment throughout the paragraph or the document as well. So then in here, I can either decide to run my sentiment analysis on an individual sentence level, but here for now, I'm analysing this across the whole body, I guess all the text in that cell as well. So I'm also here selecting the option output categorical sentiment. Okay, so this will return a numeric value, and I can actually put that into classify overall, is this data positive, negative, or sorry, positive, neutral, or negative as well. So I can either focus on the magnitude of the positivity, the neutrality, the negativity, or I can just say inspect, well, overall this is positive, neutral, or negative as well. And so bearing in mind that the scale, the range of sentiment for this, the results we're going to be returned, range from -1 being negative to 0 for neutral and 1 for positive as well. But we can decide, depending on the situation, that anything over, say, 0.5, we want to consider as being positive. Okay, so we could say any small, even incremental kind of positivity, we can specify that as being very positive, or have a very high score to be considered positive as well. So we can adjust these all the way through. So when I focus in here on my input text, okay, and let's just take a moment to inspect the actual results. Okay, so when we have in here, we can see the tool is returning the magnitude of negativity, okay, and also the magnitude in here of neutrality, and then also the positivity. Okay, so it's really assessing this in almost 3 different kind of criteria or ways as well. And this is quite interesting as well. It's to look at, I guess, the complexity that you're faced with natural language processing. And then we can take the compound sentiment score. So this is really kind of summing it up almost into one sentiment score as well. And then does that correspond to overall being neutral, negative, or positive as well? So quite quick and easy, but hiding a lot of complexity underneath as well. So very, very useful when dealing with semi-structured or unstructured text, different types of data. So not your numeric values as well. So we can kind of start to get in there as well. Kind of just coming back to possible use cases of this as well, that you might want to track the overall sentiment over time. So this could be very useful with survey results and attributes of those responses. Then also collecting or filtering that extreme sentiment. So perhaps rave reviews of your product online, perhaps automatically passing on negative reviews to your customer service team for further actioning as well. This is just one technique, example of a technique that we use in natural language processing. And there are also other tools as well in the palette, particularly topic modeling as well, which I encourage you to have a look online, read a little bit further about it. That can be complex in terms of interpretation, how you actually kind of understand the kind of results, but they can be very powerful altogether used in conjunction as well. But on the other end of the scale is very quickly, perhaps you've seen this before, is the word cloud visualization as well. So even before I get to that, it's worth mentioning in passing is the text pre-processing tool. And this can help you clean up punctuation and also adjust the language slightly as well. I won't go through this in too much detail as well, but you can remove very kind of common words like say stop, the, go, he, her, etc. as well, and kind of filter out digits, punctuation. So that kind of pre-processing can be useful. In here as well, this is really a visualization technique where you are visualizing the frequency of individual words as well. And so you can have some kind of visual formatting options. And this is achievable. You may have seen this online, other visualizations in here as well. So this can be great, very useful to get an overall impression about kind of words or topics that are being mentioned. Well, not so much topics, but the frequency of the word. So while it's not a detailed visualization, it can give you a great impression quite quickly, and they're very easy to interpret as well. So you can start to see how when you use these tools all together, they can be very powerful for processing and analysis of natural language. And in here, I've just kind of output this. I could output this to an HTML as well. So this could be automatically run, scheduled, and now putting, say, to an internal website as well. So just kind of moving on in here, kind of it's worth spending a bit of time talking about the assisted modeling tool as well. And this is really kind of bringing in a lot of complexity kind of under the hood, as it were. So this can really help users start to build and train and select machine learning models, apply them on their data without requiring prior experience as well. So it is an assisted, kind of guided tool as well, and it can be quite useful as well. So there is this kind of functionality has already been achievable in Alteryx beforehand, but this is really a streamlined, guided version as well. So this can open this up to more and more users in your organization as well. So I'll kind of load this up and take you through it as well. But it's really step by step helping you target a certain variable. So what are you really trying to either classify? What are you trying to predict? Do you want to go through this quite quickly? And or would you like to have a little bit more hands-on approach to this as well? And it'll also guide you through necessary data cleansing steps as well, which is slightly more detailed than, say, data preparation, but preparing your data for machine learning models as well. And it is worth noting that this machine learning in general will tend to produce better results with larger volumes of data as well. So, yep, okay. So kind of in terms of the initial steps as well, we're going to slightly cleanse our data very, very lightly as well. We're going to drop this into the canvas. We're going to add the tool. And it's worth noting, we'll be talking about data types and features from here on in as well. And there are some certain data types which don't necessarily interact very well with the assisted modeling tool as well. And we'll just we'll kind of go through everything as well. So I have over in here personal favorite data set I found online prices as well from Melbourne several years ago now, 2016, and to October in 2018 as well. Before we kind of hop in, I have already kind of loaded this data in here, and we have about almost 50,000 records. Okay, and then when I'm looking closely here, it's worth looking at my actual data types. Okay, so we kind of have some strings, we have dates, we have engine. The next step I do straight away is to use from the preparation palette auto field. Okay, and this is going to convert any string fields. It's going to assess the content of those fields and convert them into a more appropriate format. In some cases, just reducing the amount of memory dedicated as well, which can help with large scales of large volumes as well. And I'm now going back to the fact that I can't use dates as well or spatial objects as well, is I am using from the developer palette in here, back over in here, very useful palette, I'm using the dynamic select tool. Okay. And by that, from here, I am unselecting all fields that are date, time, blobs, or spatial objects, okay, as well. Now, you may have heard of the concept of the references to training your machine learning models. And to achieve that, and this is a large topic in itself, is we're going to take a sample of our data as well. There are many details and important details, sorry, to kind of remember when you are sampling your data set as well, but we are using the create samples tool. Okay, when I drop that down, I'm basically randomly sampling or taking a sample from my data set in here to use, and I'm a machine learning model. So at the moment, I'm taking 70%, okay, and I'm going to reserve 30% to actually test my model across on here as well. And another 5% for this, I'm using as a holdout, so an additional testing as well. You can adjust this quite quickly, and every time I run this as well, it's using a random seed. So we're selecting a random 70% each time we run this as well. And that's to avoid overfitting as well. So from that in there, I'm now, after all of that, I'm heading over to the machine learning palette, and I'm bringing across in here my assisted modeling tool. Okay, and I am now connecting that to my evaluation in here. So where I had 70%, I'm going to run this workflow once. Okay, and this is necessary because it's loading the data into the tool first. Okay, you'll see here I have two options in assisted or expert as well. The expert will take you through very quickly, but the assisted modeling is quite useful. So now I go through and open up the assisted modeling in here. This is now looking at my evaluation sample. Okay, and here we are now in the kind of guided kind of wizard almost in a way. Okay, and this is going to give me all the way through this. It's very useful because it provides detailed explanations of what you're actually performing and why you're trying to perform these steps as well. So we'll see in here when we talk about a target variable or target, yeah, we're going to use our predictors. So what data are we going to use to try and predict our target? So in this example here, where it's classification. Okay, now for this example in here, I'm going to now select price. Okay, can I predict the retail price of a house based upon attributes? Okay, because this is a numeric value, so not necessarily a categorical, which would be more classification. Okay, it's suggesting that I am actually trying to perform regression. Okay, so asking me to confirm. Are you sure that I want to target price? Yes. And now let's go through step by step. Okay. So now we're having a look at the actual data types. So we have the data types in here, but this is using the tool in here, feature types. Okay. And this is it's worth pointing out the difference between data types and feature types as well. So not your integers, doubles, strings, etc., but is this a categorical feature, say like kind of left-handed or right-handed, or is it actually numeric as well? So I can see in here the kind of probability that Alteryx is suggesting that it is a numeric or categorical variable as well, and I can see a small sample of my data as well. Okay, and at any time you'll see that there are kind of glossaries along the way, so it's a very educational tool. Okay, so we're kind of inspecting this as well. We do have some options, so we can kind of correct this. Okay, and this is where you should be using your domain knowledge as a SME. You kind of know the topic, the subject of your data, so you can kind of correct this if necessary as well. Kind of move on in here, and I don't have any missing values, but this can be an important step as well if you have to perform any imputation. So kind of automating this kind of cleansing that may be necessary depending on the data set. Okay. And so now it is assessing the kind of relationship between some of these features compared to, well, the relationship between these features and my target variable. So rooms, type, the method of selling, the postcode, Alteryx has indicated that this is a pretty good predictor as well. But we want to, it's highlighting in here that the actual council area is very strongly appears to be related to council area. So already that's a pretty useful insight as well. So I may say, look, I don't want to take council area into account when I run this model as well. So quite interesting in there. And we also have along the way how it is assessing the strength of the relationship as well. So you have your Gini impurity as well. And I won't get into these too much, but it's quite useful. So you can see the kind of assistance and the guidance along the way. Okay, now based upon my selections, my data set as well, this is now the AutoML tool. It is suggesting 3 different models that I could use to achieve my objectives as well, and the pros and cons of running these models. So linear regression, very well known and still effective in some cases, a model as well. And then also decision tree as well. It's talking about trying to give you a little bit of a heads up along the way. So what are some of the potential use cases? Okay, and so we're going to run these models in conjunction and then evaluate them along the way. So, so now it's kind of suggested those models. Let's actually run these algorithms. Okay, so it's running these along the way at the same time, and we can start to compare them on the leaderboard. Okay, now this is a smaller data set as well, and also bear in mind we don't have a large number of features as well. So we're it's run them together, and so now let's assess these. Okay, and kind of looking through the leaderboard, we're seeing pretty good results so far from the random forest model as well. And by that, the way that we evaluate that is returning the lowest. But there are many different evaluation metrics we can use as well. We're looking at the root mean square error, okay? But we could decide, we're not forced to pick this. We could kind of make our own decisions as well. And we have some information along the way here as well. And this is running it through, and one by one, fitting these observations are kind of rows, and looking at the difference or the error between the predicted value being output by the model and the actual value as well, so the residual. Okay, so we can kind of run that through 100 observations in there, and we can pick each model on its own. So here we can look at the predicted value versus the actual value as well. So we can see in some cases the actual kind of residual is larger. Okay, when we have a higher retail value as well, the residual is a little bit higher. When we're down kind of a smaller value as well, then the corresponding residual is a little bit lower as well. So we can kind of inspect this, visually inspect the performance of the model as well. We can look back to the feature importance as well. So bear in mind we removed the council area as well, and we're looking over here when we go through the models that region appears to have a very high importance to target variable or price as well. So we're already kind of getting some insights in there. Okay, and we can go review configuration, so the choices we made before running these models, and the imputation. Okay, if we had to perform any as well, and which features were used, and then also which models we used together as well, so or compared against each other. Okay, so I may decide from here that we haven't quite reached our desired level of accuracy in terms of prediction as well, based upon these metrics. So we might run this again and over with different models, slightly different settings, parameter selections as well. And so we can start to collect, rank all of our models and versions of models along the way. And so just that speed as well, speed as well, it can be really powerful. But now I've decided that random forest is the most effective model. So now I'm going to add that to my actual workflow. Okay, so can I head back, and we can see now there's all the data types. I cleaned up any missing values, selected the features, and then here we can see that we've used the random forest model. We've decided to use the random forest model in there. We've trained that model as part of the process of using the assisted modeling tool, and that has now returned my model. Okay, and now I want to apply that model. Okay, and kind of going back in here is going back to where we had reserved some of our actual data as well, so from validation. So now we can just connect that back in there, bring that down, and I'm going to add a browse tool. Okay, if you have used the predictive palette, predictive analytics in Alteryx, this will remind you very much of using the score tool as well. But here it's from the machine learning palette as well. So now we kind of go back and run this again. So performance may be a consideration with larger volumes. So you may kind of perform these steps accessibly to a smaller sample of your data in here. And so now if we just kind of look a little bit closely in here, where we have our actual price, okay, and we can see the predicted price as well. It's the output. So it may not be, may not meet our desired kind of target or goals, okay, but that would mean that we can run this again with different parameter selections, perhaps different samples, adding certain additional fields, which is what we'll kind of talk about in a moment, or even removing certain fields. So that kind of iteration can be performed very quickly with this tool. Okay, so going back in here. Okay, so when we were talking about features in here, when we were, we've looked at the fields that were within our data set as well, and they may not present us, allow us to reach that desired level of accuracy as well. So we might perform additional steps, known as feature engineering as well. And so when we refer to a feature, it's another characteristic or an attribute. So it's additional to our data set in many ways. Now, in data science, you may have heard that feature engineering is as much of an art as a science. And so there must be a bit of domain knowledge and kind of guidance to create these features as well. So kind of using SQL, that may take a little bit longer, depending upon your kind of capabilities, data, complexity, and so forth. But there is as much of a, I guess you have to go through this manual iteration step where you're first of all deciding, kind of brainstorming and deciding, well, what are possibly useful features as well. Then going ahead and building those features. Again, assessing, well, how, what is the importance of that feature to my target variable as well, and then perhaps improving it, and then iterating over and over again. So this kind of manual process can be quite lengthy, and you may not be heading in the right direction in here as well. You may kind of may overlook a certain feature that could provide a really large boost in accuracy when you're training your model as well. So we have the ability now with the Intelligence Suite to automate this aspect as well. And for that, we also look at how we're structuring this data as well. So in that example with the real estate, we're looking at a kind of single data set. It's almost like a denormalized as well. But now with the build features tool, we can start to connect our tables that have a relationship in a normalized fashion as well. So let's hop back to Alteryx now. Okay, so I have some very small data sets in here just to kind of illustrate the tool as well. So when I kind of cherry picked this data set in here, I just kind of talk through some of the kind of features in here. So we're really kind of looking at, for one example, it's really like almost like a generic customer set database in here, meant to mimic that. In terms of which city a customer is in, their actual orders, so their actual order ID and when they performed, placed their order as well. And then obviously the order contained products and how profitable were those products overall. So that's, we don't have any kind of customer or city information or even order information in here as well. Then now we're looking at order ID for this one. So for a particular order, what products were comprise that order and the quantity. Okay, so again, I am using my auto field in here just to convert any strings to a more appropriate data type as well. And now I'm going through and using the feature types. Okay, so you'll recognize this from the assisted modeling tool as well. Okay, so really we're kind of auto detecting, and it's suggesting that, say, city is a categorical feature as well, the same with customer name. Okay, so, and that kind of makes sense as well. This is where you're kind of confirming, really using your kind of domain knowledge a lot along the way. Okay, we can see that it's picked up for order date, it's date time as well. I can go through and specify the type of feature, and I have a kind of range in here of kind of preset features as well. It's kind of, here I can use spatial objects as well. Perhaps I'm looking at IP addresses. So kind of setting you up for different types of features in here, phone numbers, file paths, quite useful. But you can be fine just using the auto detect as well. So, okay, so I kind of perform that for each of my inputs. So these are my kind of tables, and I'm going through in here, it's meant to mimic tables, is I clicked on the actual connection in here, and I'm naming this connection. Okay, and that can be quite useful. As you'll see, we get over here, now they're all kind of connected to the build features tool. Okay, so in here, I have my, if you can see my kind of connections appearing in here, and it's telling me which columns, oh sorry, the number of columns as well. And I can select which field is my kind of primary key, unique identifier as well. And what am I really kind of targeting? So what is the kind of purpose of this? Like what is the kind of, we had the target table, sorry, we had target variables, and now we have like a target table as well. So we're building features to add to a certain table. We're selecting this in here. So then now I can go through and I specify the relationship between these, okay? And so this will remind you of SQL as well, kind of similar to these joins as well. And we're kind of looking at, I can add as many kind of relationships in here as required as well, but I'm specifying, well, look, customer name, every customer has a unique customer name, and every order has a customer as well. So then again, same with product, and every order has a product. Every order has an ID as well, and I think I had this right. I had to play with a few of the settings in here, and it will probably take a little bit of experimentation as well. But after I kind of go through that, kind of start to get to primitives. And so this is really the exciting part, the innovative part of this tool, is this is using a technique known as deep feature synthesis. So I am selecting primitives, and so these primitives are really kind of template features in here as well. So I'm kind of saying, well, I'd like to kind of generate, say, median, mean as well. Okay, and I can kind of go through, and these features may improve the accuracy of my models when I train them as well. So I can really quite quickly select all the way through these. Now I have a greater options, greater range of options in here than say in my summarize tool as well. And so these may be useful depending upon your data set, really your overall purpose as well. Now, we can talk about the table depth in here. Okay, so this is kind of going back to the example of I've connected or specified the relationships between these tables or inputs. And when I use a primitive, when I select a primitive, it is working through the join, through the relationship in here. And so I can specify how far, how deep I want those primitives to be applied as well. So I can kind of go all the way up. So if I had more and more data, more and more tables connected in here, I can quite quickly say create some features that go through all the relationships all the way down, like 9 tables deep or something along the way. So it depends upon your settings, situation as well. So now, quite quickly in here, you can see it's generated these features for me. Okay, so I can see, even though I'm looking at my kind of product table, it's kind of presented me with now the median of the quantity. Okay, so bear in mind I didn't have quantity in this table, in this input. It's giving me the count. Now these are kind of simple features just to illustrate this, but I'm targeting my product table, and I can already add in there the order product from the other, the number as well, and also the mean or the average of the quantity, okay, from that other table. So I've only gone 2 tables deep now as well, and also the minimum as well. So I can, depending upon my kind of settings, my selections, I can go very deep and generate a very large number of features within here. Now, they may not all have the same importance. They may not end up being useful in training my models, but that speed in automating this, in automating the creation, selection, can be very powerful and speed up your whole training process all the way through. So a little bit of setup required, a little bit of domain knowledge, but still a lot of speed gains as well, performance as well from this build features tool. So I encourage you to try the trial version of this as well, and apply it to your own data sets as well, and kind of inspect, the real gains that you're going to get from this as well. So when we have been creating these features, and we've been talking about trying to classify them as categorical, numeric, we've been automatically creating features as well, and assessing the importance or significance on our target variable when we're training as well. It's very much worth noting, acknowledging target leakage as well. Unusual term, you may not have heard of this as well. What does target leakage, data leakage really mean? That means we may have features in there that are related to our end result. So if we are trying to predict whether or not customers will like, approve of our product, say for example, if we have survey results in there, perhaps in different fields, they can influence our training. So we're kind of, if you accidentally include those final results at the end of your case as inputs, that can skew your performance as well. So target leakage, you're really accidentally including kind of end results, okay? And they can, those kind of fields, those features can take many different forms as well. So this is a very kind of subtle and indirect occurrence as well. So you have to use your judgment and discretion to, first of all, be aware of the possibility that this may be in your data set, and also how you kind of look for them, how you try to discover and reveal these possible fields as well. So different types as well. This can kind of take the form of different types as well. So where you might have, say, feature leakage. So that's where we have additional fields, columns that are duplications as well. It may be priced by another name, going back to our real estate. So there may be, for example, I may be targeting price, but there may be, say, a tax variable in there as well. So I'd want to remove that because that's related to my price as well. So premature featureization, what does that really mean? If you recall, when we were looking at assisted modeling, we were looking out for missing values. Okay, so if we had missing values that were only applied in, say, a valuation sample, then that may not be in our valuation, but not in our validation. So we may be kind of filling in the gaps for one sample, but not in the other as well. That can be classified as target leakage. That can kind of skew our model as well. Even things like duplicate rows. So depending on if you haven't cleansed your data set thoroughly. Also a subtle occurrence is time leakage. Okay, so that's something to kind of be aware of, that if you have your data set, say every row is a particular timestamp and there is an event that occurred after your target event, so that you'll want to be able to remove those values, filter them out as well. And then also when fields are kind of grouped together, okay, you may need to split them out. So this is kind of trying to remove any kind of ambiguity. So you really have to kind of inspect and think about conceptually what each field is really capturing before you use it for training your models as well. So a great data dictionary and data governance will really take you a long way here as well. And I guess the main kind of question is, how do you avoid this as well? So no real shortcuts in here, but really just being kind of thorough, aware, and skeptical of your data set, analyzing and investigating it thoroughly before you use it for training as well. So kind of guidelines in here that you want to emit data that should not be known at the time of the target outcome, really relying upon your common sense. Being aware of the origin of your data set as well. Does it contain anything that was generated, pre-generated, that's not actual data that's captured from anything as well? If you're looking at, say, survey results as well, kind of going back to our sentiment analysis at the beginning, were people aware that they were giving a survey, or how their data may be analysed, their responses analysed as well, the kind of bias in there. And then is the time series, again, is the model being evaluated with data before the training set as well? So being aware of when the data was captured. So also going back to create samples tool as well. How are you sampling the data? Are you really sampling a random data set for your evaluation, for your training? Okay. And then also going back to our assisted modeling, where we're looking closely at those evaluation metrics, the root mean squared error. What can also assist you along the way, can really kind of speed that up, is when you're performing that exploratory data analysis as well. So going back into Alteryx as well, these in the data investigation, these tools in this palette can, particularly with larger and larger volumes of data, can help you along the way really thoroughly understand and investigate your data before you use it for training as well. So I hope you found this useful, insightful as well, as a kind of quick overview of the Intelligence Suite. And if you have any questions or like any further explanations or examples, demonstrations, please don't hesitate to contact us at Billigence. And yeah, I hope you gain a lot of value out of the Intelligence Suite. It's very exciting to have these very powerful capabilities at your fingertips and very accessible quickly as well. So I might just try to hop over to the chat in here, and top right, I think I've got Q&A and everything. I'm not sure if I can, it's going to load up. Do we have any questions? How much prior knowledge of predictive analytics as well? That is a good question. I think that assisted modeling tool is very useful to kind of get you started on the journey. There's more and more information online. I think that taking a data set that you know quite well, experimenting with the tools to kind of understand the outputs as well is really going to take you a little bit further, or get you on the journey as well. Personally, I've found the Alteryx community very useful. There's some great blog posts as well. They have a data science corner as well. Also the tool mastery sections as well, I found very useful. They go through in depth with examples of each individual tool. There are lots of great videos online that can illustrate the kind of concepts behind these tools as well. But how much prior knowledge? Some, but I'm always learning more and more. And I think that you have to kind of take charge of your own destiny in there as well. The tools make it quite easy or quick to kind of analyze the data, and it's how you interpret the results. That's really where you get the most value as well. So, but yeah, happy to kind of keep talking as well. Please send through kind of any emails, contacts, or anything like that. And we can kind of give you a bit of a demonstration of the predictive analytics palette as well, and some training on some examples, as well as the Intelligence Suite as well. And yeah, happy to kind of take it from here. I think unless there's any other questions, I'd just like to thank you for joining, and yeah, have fun with Alteryx and the suite and all the tools, and stay tuned for more webinars to come. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye.